I'm Nate with Dirt Lifestyle, and this is Driving Line.
In issue 111 of Driving Line magazine, I gave you 6 tips and tricks for DIY off-roaders. And today I'm going to do a video version of this because I bet at least one of these tips is going to help you in your next off-road project.
My first tip / suggestion is buy a laser. These are not that expensive and they are incredibly valuable. It's one of those tools that once you get it, you'll realize, like, I should have gotten this years ago. So what this does, this one's a line laser. So this casts a perfectly straight horizontal and vertical line, and it auto levels. As long as you can get it like close, then it'll auto level. And the ability to cast a straight line right down the middle of your chassis gives you the ability to perfectly square up axles in line with the chassis, so that you don't have like your axles, when you're going down the road, one's off just a little bit. All it takes is something to be off a 1/4 inch this way or that way, and you could be wearing through tires funny, it could be crab walking down the road. There's all these drivability issues that happen and handling issues that happen when you don't have things perfectly centered in the chassis. You can use this to see if you've bent your frame. You can use this to just hang stuff on the wall. Like when I did my material rack over there, being able to cast a perfectly straight horizontal line made it to where I'm not trying to measure off of the floor or something, hold my material as I'm trying to also hold a drill with my third arm to screw it into the wall. This is an incredibly valuable tool. And another suggestion that I have is, if you do decide to pick one up, get yourself a couple of tripods. You'll find these at, garage sales. You'll find them at, they're cheap on Amazon, whatever. I have a bunch of different size tripods, and I picked up like a quick release type of adapter. And this makes it to where if I need something to be like as tall as me, if I need to cast a line that's 6 feet in the air, I have tripods for that. And then this one is also like a super adjustable tripod. Or I even made this little like base plate. This is the base plate off of a air compressor that I used in like a onboard air application, and then I just installed this little adapter on it, and then boom. Now if I need to cast a line right off the floor and like underneath the vehicle, I have the ability to do that. All in, with a couple of tripods and this, you should be able to get away with it for like 100 to 150 bucks. You can go pretty wild with these, and you can get some really expensive ones, but you can pick up the smaller units like this for like 70, 80 bucks and then throw in another like $30 tripod, and you're off to the races. And I'm telling you, once you get one, you'll wonder how you functioned without one.
Tips number 2 and 3 are super simple, super straightforward. Tip number 2 is to get a headlamp. This is one of those things we all have in our camping gear anyway, and they make so many cheap rechargeable headlamps these days. There's no reason for us not to use them more in the shop, me included. This is one of those tools that I have and I occasionally use in the shop, and I want to make it a point to start using it more instead of dragging around a light or just like squinting really hard to see in those dark corners of one of my projects. Tip number 3 is one that I've talked about on my channel quite a few times, and that is you can erase Sharpie with Sharpie. I used to use this in the trades all the time, and it's one of those things that if you already know about it, share it with one of your friends who don't, and they're gonna look at you like you're a wizard. It is awesome that you can just scrub Sharpie all over a mark that you've made with Sharpie, and when it's wet, you just wipe it off with your thumb. And I've done this on plastics, metals, all kinds of different types of materials, and it works outstanding. And in fact, it works so good that I've found that it works with every brand of Sharpie that I've ever tried.
Tip number 4, get an off-road jack. And this is, whether or not you are an off-roader is irrelevant. Having the ability to drive over things in your shop floor and have it not lock the wheel is so nice. This looks tall, it's actually not. This little top bit comes off, and this is a very practical height for just like normal car applications. Plus, I do metal fab, so I'll have like little pieces like this that I'll miss that'll be on the floor. And with my old jack, that would lock it up. A little end of a zip tie would lock a wheel up. They're super frustrating. And once you go to these bigger wheels, you realize like, oh, all jacks should be made this way. It's very, very nice. Plus, a lot of you are like me, and around your shop or garage probably has a whole bunch of gravel. Having something that you can just roll over gravel so you can change the tire on your tow truck or whatever the situation may be is so nice. Whereas before, I would have to carry my floor jack out with me wherever I went, and then I'd have to slide it underneath the truck, just because you can't always, you might have too many projects in the shop and you can't work on them. So it's nice to have the flexibility of having something that just very, very easily rolls right over any terrain.
Tip number 5 is pick yourself up a set of what I call alignment rods. So they're tapered punches, but I use them to align bolts and bolt holes and whatnot all the time. Every time I'm like taking a control arm or a piece of steering or something where it's kind of hard to line up the holes, especially if you're putting it into something that's like a little bit blind. If you just have the tiniest opening, you can take one of these tapered punches, you can slip it in there, and then you can physically like pull the control arm into place, and then you can follow it up with a bolt. It is so nice to have something like this, and I went many years of installing control arms, especially like IFS control arms where things can get really complicated to line up. It's so sweet to be able to throw a tapered rod in there, get it pulled exactly where you need it, and then you can follow it with the bolt. And when you consider how cheap they are, it's one of those tools we should all have. Like, this is something that I might even get just extra ones for my truck, because if I ever need to repair something on the side of the road, I find uses for them constantly.
I'm fully aware at how lame this last tip sounds, but bear with me. A torque tightening chart, something that gives you torque values for all that hardware that you can't find one for, is actually super valuable. And for how cheap this little piece of paper is, you know, you could probably find something like this online and print it out. What I did is I just went on Amazon, I typed in like torque tightening chart, something along those lines, and boom, like 10 or 12 bucks, I've got something that is like, it's oil resistant and it lives in my shop and I reference it constantly. If you're like me and you have a history of measuring things in ugga-duggas, well then one day you gotta graduate out of that, because we've all lost bolts on the trail, and some of us have friends that lose bolts on the trail all the time. In fact, Christmas is around the corner. Spend 10 or 12 bucks for Jeff or whoever your buddy is that constantly loses those bolts on the trail, and I guarantee you, once they start to torque everything to spec, they're not gonna lose those bolts anymore. The way this is broke down is you've got like coarse, fine, metric, standard, and then it measures it out, or then it divides it out by grade. So if you have a grade 5 bolt, a grade 8 bolt, these different things, and it even shows you like what the head of the bolt should say on it and what kind of pattern is on a grade 3 or a grade 5. Then it will give you a torque value based on the diameter of the bolt and the grade of the bolt. So no matter what it is that you're building, or if you're like me and you build a bunch of custom weird stuff that's not made to go together, you're going to have to figure out how these bolts are supposed to be torqued. And I promise you, if you start torquing all your hardware, you're gonna lose way less hardware on the trail, and so will Jeff. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you on the trail.
Thanks for watching. I'm Lauren Healy, Team Noto driver and off-road racing champion. Driving Line brings you weekly episodes and series, so hit subscribe. Don't miss the next video with more automotive content that fuels you. We'll see you out there.